All right, hello. Welcome back. Chase Thomas Podcast, taping this on a Monday afternoon. First-timer, fellow Blue Wirean. You know him from that SEC podcast, a very good college football show that you should go subscribe to. Check it out if you are not already. Mike, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hey, Chase. Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing well.
How many people actually know your last name? When they see you out, are they just like SEC Mike? Do people just think you don't have a last name at this point? Is your last name now Mike and your first name is SEC? Are you going to get that illegally changed? What's the future here?
Well, I mean, the first time someone recognized me in public will be... I screwed that up already. The next time will be the first time. So, hey, I don't have to deal with that. I'm not that famous, so, and I don't want to be, so... people just, I don't even actually go by Mike. I mean, maybe that's like an inside secret, but it just, SEC Michael just doesn't have the same ring as SEC Mike.
Hold on. Do we want to reveal on air what you actually go by? Are you saying like family and friends call you something completely different? Is it just another variation of Mike? Is it a different name entirely? What's going on here?
Yeah, maybe I'll leave that maybe for the next time. That's a cliffhanger there.
I like it. You did a great interview that I listened to the other day with Paul Finebaum on your show. So go check that out, folks, if you have not already on YouTube over on that SEC podcast. And I want to ask you one thing about Paul. After spending an hour with him, what do you like more about Paul Finebaum, the person?
I mean, he's just a great guy. He's always been a great guy. And I don't have a bad thing to say about him. He's always going out of his way to help me, and I have no idea why. I got no relationship with him whatsoever other than being on his show. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it. You'd be amazed, man. The people that now 2 weeks ago, since we're recording, was the SEC championship game. I had a number of people lined up. Many of them did come through, so I'm very appreciative for everybody I did get, but a lot of people ghosted me. A lot of people said they'd come by, didn't come by. I don't want to, name any names because I feel like no one owes me anything. Like, you reached out to me, I don't know you, but, you try to be a good guy. You try to do these shows. So I'm very appreciative of everybody that came through. But a number of them did reach out after that Paul Finebaum video went up. And, before that it was even posted, I didn't hear back from them. And we're talking about a week here. And they all, not all of them, but most of them, apologized. Not that I needed that or anything, but I just thought that was kind of cool. But to really answer your question, I mean, he's the only one, and I've done about a dozen interviews in that downtown Nashville studio. It's the RCA building. It's, famous recording artists go through that. He's the only one I've ever had in there that wanted to go through the whole thing and wanted to learn history about it, and just a really cool guy. And he actually stayed about half hour after the show, and we just kind of talked shop. I don't want to get into what we talked about, but again, he didn't have to do any of that. He didn't even have to show up, and he did. So I got nothing but nice things to say about Paul. He's a very outstanding guy.
It seems like to me, one of the most difficult things in media, I don't know if you shared this, that you have to be more conscientious to stay curious, right? To not formulate these takes or formulate these beliefs, and then you get lazy. I think that's where laziness creeps in, and it could be just subconscious that it starts to creep in, and you start mailing it in. Paul doesn't strike me as that guy. He seems still innately curious. I think that's part of the reason he still does these, which you picked his brain about with taking so many calls, is I really think when he has you on, when he has friend of the show Chris Marler, whether it's callers, whoever, if it's the head coach at Mizzou, it doesn't matter. His tone and his interest in the guest and interest in learning always shines through the most. And I think that was something that I took away from yours, is that, and it doesn't surprise me that he stayed 30 minutes after with you, because he just seems like that down to earth. Like, he really does just like learning and listening to other folks and gaining other perspectives on where other folks are coming from, and just being a smarter college football broadcaster is the sense that I got. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and just kind of doing it your own way, doing things a little bit differently. I think that was kind of the theme. You don't want to go in an interview having it already set up and knowing where it's going to go. But that's just the sense that I got just studying his career. So it was kind of cool to go down memory lane, and he seemed to agree with kind of that take. You just got to be a little bit different, man, because there are probably hundreds of people that could be Paul Finebaum, but for whatever reason they played it safe, or like he was telling the story when he was a student journalist. I mean, he basically got thrown off the Tennessee beat. He got traveling privileges revoked. One of the coaches, according to him, physically threatened him. And if they did that to me today, I'd probably fall in line. And we're talking a student journalist here that instead of falling in line, he went a different way. And it may have taken a little while, but clearly it paid off for him. And so he's definitely an inspiration.
Who, like when you got started with your show and building out your set and everything, did you have a particular like guy or just show that you grew up listening to? Because I know people ask me that as just like, who do you model your show after and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think it's just different things. It's like when you read a lot of books and when you find your voice, like you just do it and then you figure out what your actual voice is, but you don't really realize what you've taken from different books, because you're absorbing different things and then you try different things and you find what feels more natural for you as you go. Like how did you come up with your format? Because like you've got it nailed down now and you seem pretty comfortable with what you're going to do with the show week in, week out. And I think listeners know what to expect. Did that take a long time? And also was it kind of one of those organic things, or did you actually have like, this is the kind of show that I want to be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of a broad question, but, growing up, I listened to The Solid Verbal.
Love them.
Yeah, I mean, they still do a great job. But when I listen to the stuff like that, and then they'll be like, well, let's talk Southern Cal football. And I'm like, I mean, that's good and all for them, but I don't care about that, So I wanted more SEC-centric. Bill Simmons was a big inspiration for me until he started talking more about being a dad than sports. And then, so I take little pieces from a little bit of every. Paul, of course, Clay Travis. He's got a couple of SEC books that are just really outstanding. I don't really follow him anymore because he's a little too political for me, which if that's your thing, that's fine. But I stay in my lane and I just do sports. Pat McAfee, I love, but I mean, he's so unique. I think it'd be a ripoff if you just tried to be college version of Pat McAfee. He's like a damn unicorn. So a little bit of all that, and I like Joe Rogan a lot. I don't like everything he says either. I think it's foolish to just fall in line with what everybody says. But he is just so massive, and it's because he's gone his own way, and he doesn't have influence. And he talks about what he's passionate. I've literally never had someone on my show that I didn't want to have on the show. We've had people pitch to us. One time, I've told this story before. I don't want to name his name, but we had some famous country musician. He's a big SEC guy. It wasn't him. It must have been like his publicist or something. I can't remember, but they wanted to come on, and I looked him up, and I was like, wow, he's got millions of followers. Yeah, let's get him on the show. And then he ghosted us. So, and again, it may not even be him. It may have just been the publicist, but that to me, that was like, that was the universe telling me, don't have these people on because they have a following. I mean, that's not who I am, and that's not what I want my show to be. I want it to be people that I genuinely want to have on and want to have a conversation with.
I think one of the things that people don't see is like with you, and I'm sure like hoops you jumped through to get Paul and different folks on over the years, they just see the after the fact. Like fans don't know like how many hoops it takes. Like when you're booking your own show, like for me, like weekend, like just getting like, it's hard to go everything, to plan a show, read everything you need to read, watch everything you need to watch, and also chop everything up, do social. Like we're doing it all. And it's I think the hardest part for me that I tell folks, I'm like, it's booking, because I have to keep up with stuff that I'm normally not keeping up with. I'm like, when did I circle back? Like, I want to get this person on at this time, and then I can do this. And it's hard. And then you have to have just super thick skin, because you will get ghosted. You will think something's going to pop and it's not. Like it's it's a tough world booking shows, and you think you're taking 2 steps forward. You're like, oh, I got this person. That means I'll probably, and then you're like 2 steps back, and you're like, nope, I'm not going to be able to get that person right now. It's a tough world booking your own show. No matter how, I guess, what quote unquote big you get, it's hard.
Yeah, it certainly can be. But again, I also think if you're too reliant on guests, then is it really your show or is it a guest show? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, the show itself has got to be, you got to get people to tune in for it, I feel like.
Yeah.
And the reason I love having guests is just because I don't want to be so repetitive. Not that I'm too worried about that because we do so much weird stuff on my show, but and we just go daily news. But sometimes there's not a lot of news, so that's clearly when a good guest could fill a void. And I just really want it to be, we try to walk a fine line. We're trying to be entertaining and we're trying to be informative, and we certainly don't take ourselves too seriously.
I like it. Let's talk actual football, Mike. Team you can't stop thinking about this spring in the SEC is who?
Maybe Texas A&M.
Why?
Because I'm trying to put my finger on what they could be, and I think they're certainly could be a lot better than they were last year. But clearly, I mean, no one saw that train wreck coming. But I don't think they're as bad as they showed. I think they could be a lot more improved this upcoming season. So that would be one. Alabama, I'm very interested to see because I've been kind of riding the train for about a decade that the dynasty's over, and every time I swear it's weird, Chase. Every time I picked Alabama to win the SEC, they don't, and every time I pick against them, they win it. So Alabama's probably going to win it next year because I don't think I'll be picking them. I feel like I kind of started the hype train on LSU this off season, so. I mean, Alabama's there. I think Missouri is interesting. We have big followings with Arkansas and South Carolina, so they're both kind of on my radar too, because I could see those programs kind of going either way. Could be really good or could be disappointing. So, I mean, honestly, I think about all 14.
Yeah, A&M, I think, there's just so much volatility there, and it's one of those we have to see if Bobby Petrino really has the keys. Like, we won't know what this offense or what this team can be until we really see Jimbo hand over the keys, because until that happens, I'm out. But then you also think, to your point, they were just this close to making the college football playoff in the COVID year. Like, that was a really, really good team that is going to be forgotten in the backdrop of college SEC football, where that Kellen Mond team that last year, they were really, really good on both sides of the ball. They were super talented. We know the recruiting still there. They lost a lot to the portal, but they also gained a lot. There's still a lot of talent. And if you like Connor Wegman, who 5-star kid, got some experience last year, still have a bunch of skill position playmakers on this offense. Like, the path to A&M being a juggernaut is still right there. That's what I think is so frustrating to try and forecast what they're going to be, is like, does Jimbo just give it to Petrino? Because Petrino offenses are never bad. Like, they are never bad. And if it's Durkin doing just a top 10, top 15 defense, which they can absolutely be, then they're going to be right there. Like, A&M should be right there, but you just don't want to do it until you see it. I would stay away. Folks, don't bet on the over-under for Texas A&M. Like, that's a humongous stay away. That's probably the biggest one for me in the conference.
Yeah, in their last game, they were playing an LSU team that was still in it to be in the college football playoff. They whooped them. Yeah. And I believe of the 22 starting that day, I think they got 19 of those guys back. So now 3 that left are arguably the 3 best, and they're on to the NFL. So take that for what it's worth. But, it could be a very dangerous team. Of course, that's basically an annual offseason statement on the Aggies.
South Carolina or Florida, who is more likely to miss a bowl game in 2023? Because I think one of them has to, just based on schedule alone.
I think Florida. I mean, I think it could be. I mean, they may have 3 first-round picks, Chase, and they just had a losing record. You know what I mean? They may have a top 5 pick in the quarterback, who once Anthony Richardson went out, they just had nothing. Now, it was just the one game, so maybe that's not fair. And I never put too much emphasis on a bowl game, but that was just god-awful. They're showing against Oregon State. And I think, when they fully unleashed Anthony Richardson, I'd love to know the backstory there. No one's really come out with it. But when he was fully unleashed, I mean, they were a dangerous team. And he was unstoppable at times. Now, other times when he wouldn't run. I think he was told not to because they knew what a drop-off they would have, and they wouldn't win a dang game without him in the SEC. But then you lose to like Vanderbilt. I mean, that's inexcusable. I don't care. He played in that game, and they couldn't rush on Vanderbilt. So they're losing 4 or 5 on the offensive line. They got 2 great running backs, but I don't have confidence in the quarterback. They just hired a 29-year-old defensive coordinator who he has a very impressive resume. He's worked with some great people, but is he really ready? I don't know. And they were just god awful on defense. So they have to be better, but I don't know how much better they will be. And their schedule's tricky right out the gate at Utah, which has won back-to-back Pac-12 championships and looking for revenge. I believe it's week 3. They get Tennessee, but Tennessee at home, they always beat Tennessee. So you could talk me into them winning both those games, but if they lose both of them, it's going to be a rough year for them.
Man, the Tennessee stuff is just, I don't know. Like, I'll have some stuff. The 8.5 scares me because Tennessee with the expectations going into this year with Joe kind of concerns me. I don't know. They're going to be deeper. They're going to be better on defense. And I think that's what a lot of people are not going to be anticipating is I think this pass rush is going to be a lot better. James Pierce, Joshua Josephs, they have so much more depth. They might have one of my favorite linebacking cores just in all of the SEC with the 3 4-stars coming in, along with Keenan Peely, the transfer from BYU, who I think is going to be really good, inserting that Juwan Mitchell spot. Aaron Beasley came on super strong. So I think Tennessee will be super strong on defense as opposed to where they were. I think they take a step back on offense. And just the tackle spots. John Campbell, we'll see if he's the right tackle. We'll see. And then it's Gerald Mincey and Crawford again. The 5-star offensive lineman in Darnell Wright's gone, and he was just Mr. Consistent. And once Tennessee was 4 years removed from, remember, the all 5-star offensive line that they had against Georgia that Pruitt pulled together. Those guys are all gone. Heupel's not recruiting at that same level on the offensive line, and that's a big concern I still have with the program. Is just that he hasn't won those battles yet, and Glenn Ellerbe has to start winning some of these 5-star offensive lineman battles because Rodney Garner is doing his job on the defensive line, and you don't have to worry about that. It's just the offensive line. Can you keep developing these 3-stars, JUCO kids, and developing them into guys who can handle the Floridas, the Georgias, the South Carolinas, the Bamas of the SEC year in, year out? And I think this year is going to be a big test as to whether or not that is sustainable, the way they're developing and hitting the offensive line.
Yeah, they sure as hell didn't do it against Georgia. I'll tell you that. But, I mean, hell, no one did,
Yeah. I don't know. I think I would lean South Carolina. They have the toughest schedule in college football in 2023. Lost a lot in the portal. I'm still not sold on Spencer Rattler because I still think September and October matter. I still think those games matter. He went on a heater against Tennessee and Clemson. That was great. Lost the ball game. More often than not, they have been bad out of the gate. The offense, they're bringing in a new offensive coordinator. We'll see how Dowell is as their new OC. I don't know. I think that schedule is brutal. I don't think you're beating Tennessee in September. I don't think you're beating Clemson back-to-back. I think right now I would say 5-7 South Carolina feels a lot more realistic to me than Florida because I don't trust Tennessee and Florida, and like you said. And then Florida beating Utah at Utah would not surprise me in the least either. So I'm right now leaning more South Carolina, and with their schedule and with how they finished their year versus the majority of what that team looked like last year, I think people are buying a little bit too much into that being a sustainable trajectory for the Gamecocks.
Sounds like you're still hurting from that late November.
I'm not hurting.
They
beat the crap. Hey, man, they beat the crap out of us. They deserve to celebrate. They kicked us out. They kicked our ass. That happened. And Tennessee did not belong in the playoff. That all happened. I'm just not a believer that that's sustainable. And that South Carolina team we saw for those 2 weeks is them turning the corner. I think there's a big comeback down to earth type deal for South Carolina this year. That's my gut instinct.
Well, one thing you've not mentioned there, and I don't know that we'll see the value and importance of this, but we still haven't really seen Shane Beamer's recruits on the field for the most part. We've seen his transfers certainly, but the guys he's bringing in via the high school ranks fitting his model. Credit him for bringing guys in to make an impact. And the special teams have been elite. That's generally where your younger players shine early in their career. And now we'll see more and more of those guys starting to step up on offense and defense for the Gamecocks. So, yeah, I mean, I can certainly see some of the points you're making. I think making a bowl game, though, I don't think that is in doubt at all, because I think the back half, their first, I'm trying to think their schedule. North Carolina,
I have it in front of me. Like, we can do this exercise real quick. You ready?
Wait, let me see if I can get it, because
okay.
This is what I do all off season. North Carolina and Charlotte.
Yep.
I mean, that's typically like a toss-up.
That's toss-up, yep.
And then don't they have like a garbage game week 2, right?
Furman, yes.
And then at Georgia, Mississippi State at home,
yep.
That's a dangerous team. And they're going to be huge underdogs at Georgia, and then at Tennessee.
Yep.
So you could talk me into them losing 3 games there. Maybe, 4 would be, I think that would be kind of unrealistic, but I would not be stunned if they lost 3 of those first 5. But then the rest of them, not saying they're going to run the table by any means, but I think they could beat everybody on the schedule. There's 1 or 2 that I think could challenge them in the back half.
I mean, they got to go to A&M. We'll see what A&M looks like. They still get Kentucky at home. They get Clemson at home, which is nice. I just don't think they're getting back-to-back Clemson. I think Mizzou, who you like, on the road is something not to sleep on. The battle for Columbia. Like, I would not surprise me if that's a dogfight for them, too. It might decide, like, South Carolina, Florida in October might decide which of those 2 teams doesn't make a bowl game. That's a possibility. The worst coordinator hire in the conference this cycle will end up being which?
Tommy Rees.
Oh,
down at Alabama. I mean, what a joke that was. And they had to give him $2 million and all this, and they had a handful of people turn him down. I think word's out, man. I don't think these guys like going to work for Nick Saban, particularly not with Kirby dominating college football. I mean, Nick Saban's already riding these guys hard. I can only imagine how hard he's riding them now that Georgia's the dominant program in the SEC.
So you're not a believer that he's intentionally going back to the A.J. McCarron decade ago, we're going to ground you into submission, defense. We're bringing in Kevin Steele back into the fold. We're going to have him ride it out until Jeremy Pruitt's allowed to be my defensive coordinator again. But we're going to be defense first. We're not going to be the fun and gun that you've seen the last couple of years with Bryce and company. Because I feel like Ty Simpson's going to be their week 1 starter, is my guess. And I think Milroe ends up in the portal. That's my gut instinct there, is that goes to Simpson, and they go more pro style and more just boring, like ground and pound up the middle. And Tommy Rees has that pro style where we're going to go 12 personnel a bunch, and it's going to resemble that Alabama dominance of a decade ago. I just don't know if that works in 2023. It feels like he's pushing against, and like we're just betting on, like they just had the best recruiting class maybe ever in the Nick Saban era. Like he's like, we have better players. I want to get back to what I'm comfortable with. And I feel like that's the way to sell the Tommy Rees hire, but that's not enough for you, I don't think.
No, I mean, go ahead. Go play old man football while they're throwing it all over the yard at Tennessee, So good luck with that strategy. Maybe it works for them. I mean, Georgia's they don't quite do that, but, they got the best roster. That's why they're killing everybody. And Alabama, you're right, should be right there too. But 2 years ago, Alabama signed the number 1 class, and about 6 of the 25 have made some impact, while the rest have done nothing. So I don't know. I think they're severely on the decline there in Tuscaloosa.
Final 2 here. Tennessee's biggest loss and biggest win in 2023 will be against who?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't predict games this far out, but the biggest loss potential would be, I think, Florida.
Yeah,
because I think you lose that, and then it's just kind of like the same old Tennessee, where it's like, maybe they're not here to stay. Because I'm telling you, I don't think Florida's not. I don't think Billy Napier's a disaster or anything. I always hate when people say, what do they call him? Sunshine Billy or Sunbelt Billy or whatever. Like, that's the stupidest damn thing. I hate when people. I mean, I get why people they just hate Florida, so you're gonna make up a nickname for somebody. But Nick Saban, where did he start out? He started out at Kent State. Josh Heupel, where did he start out as head coach? Central Florida. I mean that's normal for a coach to go to at a lower level and come up, but that's neither here nor there. If Tennessee can't beat this Florida team, they're not going to have a good year. So I think that would be their biggest disappointing. And just getting that swamp monkey off your back, so to speak, I think would be huge for Josh Heupel. I mean, he is certainly changing the narrative quickly at Tennessee, but that would be a significant step back. So that would be a big loss and potentially the biggest win. I think you have to go back-to-back national champions, Georgia, at home. I'm not sitting here predicting the game. I'm not foolish enough to pick against Georgia. If I do that, by God, I got to hear about it for 6 months. But I think that's the opportunity for Tennessee to get a signature win under Josh Heupel, and they may be the only team that could beat Georgia in the regular season.
I think it's going to be a dogfight, pardon the pun there, but I'll be in the building. I was in it for 2 years ago in Tennessee. I remember I made the bet with folks that I was like, Tennessee will absolutely be up on Georgia after the first quarter. Like, there's no question they're going to be up on Georgia. And they were up after the first quarter. Hey, raise the banner. But I think there is a slight setback with that offense. I think you're going to see just how good Stetson was for Georgia going to Carson Beck or Gunnar Stockton or whoever. There's going to be a learning curve there. I think there's a slight setback. The defense is not going to be what it was in 2020 when they came to Knoxville, the best defense maybe we've ever seen in college football. I think it's going to be pretty close. My gut tells me Tennessee is going to be like 7. I think it opened already at like 7.5. Like Tennessee, Georgia opened in March at 7.5. So I think it's going to be, my gut tells me that will be not a coin flip, but like Tennessee will have an outside shot. And I agree with you too on Florida. I think that's one, if you drop that early, the whole, like everything with Joe Milton gets a lot more shaky, because if they drop that game, that means Joe Milton wasn't good. And if Joe Milton's not good there, then you're like, uh-oh. And then if you're struggling at home against UTSA, because UTSA is a really, really good G5 team that's going to come into Knoxville and they're going to score. And if it's rough and Joe Milton isn't able to keep up with Harris, the quarterback for UTSA, Knoxville fans, how they are. And there is a Nico Iamaleava sitting behind him. And it's easy to chant inside Neyland Stadium? Nico. Nico is going to be loud, and it's just going to be unlike anything Joe Milton could ever anticipate, because until you get in there, like I've been in there when they're chanting for Harrison Bailey over Jarrett Garantano years ago. Nico's easy. Nico's the biggest recruit since Peyton Manning. Like you can't prepare for that in spring ball. You can't prepare for that in summer ball. So when everyone's like, it's Joe Milton's job, I'm like, that's great. Joe Milton can say he's ready. Like, I hope it happens. Like, it's better for Tennessee football if Joe Milton's awesome and a Heisman guy this year. Like, that's the best case scenario for Tennessee football. I'm just saying, Tennessee fans with 100,000 plus have already seen the worst of Joe Milton. They've seen him run out of bounds when the game was on the line against Ole Miss. They've seen him overthrow dude after dude. They all want him to succeed, but there is still this trepidation around everywhere here in Knoxville about this being sustainable for 12 to 13 games. And when you have a 5-star kid where they're like, if we're going to play like this, just put in the 5-star. Just put him in and let him get his reps. I hope that's not what happens, but Tennessee fans, and my gut tells me that it's going to be rocky all season long.
Most chantable name since Jim Bob Cooter. They love chanting for that guy, even though, I don't know he ever saw the field at any meaningful action.
Final question. Very quick. LSU should be considered the favorite to win the national title in 2023. True or false? I have true here.
The favorite? No, false.
Okay, who do you have as the favorite?
Georgia.
Do you? Three-peat?
Oh yeah. I don't know if they're going to even get tested in the regular season. So, unless we'll see how many more speeding violations they get down there. But and Kirby doesn't even suspend anybody. So yeah, they'll be good.
Wow. Three-peat though, man. I think if Stetson was back, you could talk me into predicting three-peat, but it's so rare, man. A three-peat in this sport, that's a lot.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I would say they're the favorite to do it.
That's fair. Well, what can we check out from you across the podcast? We mentioned the Paul Finebaum show that you had on your very program, so go check that out on your YouTube page, audio, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're both over here at the Blue Wire Pod Network, but what can the good folks check out from you the rest of this week and going forward? What do you want to plug, man?
Yeah, we got a couple more of our in-studio interviews coming up from, we actually recorded them during SEC, the tournament there in Nashville. So we got a couple more of those coming out, content. We should have several more shows this week, but yeah, just hanging out and, search that SEC podcast, highest rated SEC show on Apple and Spotify, or just search SEC Mike. You should be able to find all that.
There you go. Well, it's great to meet you. Great talking ball. And keep up the good work, sir. And I'd love to have you back on again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.